We've been looking at various ways Excel can help us expand our use of the WordPress pages on our website, and have covered quite a lot of ground. In the last video, we set up Excel to automate the process of uploading files to our web directories from within Excel, rather than through an external FTP client such as FileZilla, which does not allow scheduled uploading. In this video, we'll go further by using Excel to download pages from the web, extract data from them, and upload the data to our web server for use in our WordPress pages. And we'll do it automatically using our Excel scheduler. A word of warning: if you haven't seen the other videos leading up to this one, it might be better to do so first. It could be tough going, and we're going to skip stuff we've already dealt with. We're going to pretend we're writing about some UK quoted oil companies and need up-to-date information on our page, let's say just a few minutes behind the markets. Here's a look at a worksheet with some basic financial information on it, which we're going to download from Yahoo's UK financial site. It's here including text from Wikipedia and keyword lists to show you how our data is going to be organised. We'll see how important this is in the next video. So let's start by having a look at our Excel Visual Basic code. This time we've got 4 routines, and we'll start with the main one, stockQuotesCSV, which collects data from the web and creates a type of CSV file to be sent off to our server. As usual, we've declared some variables, integers for our loop, row and column indexes, and strings to pick up data. We've got a strange string variable called S for separator, which is probably as clear as mud. As before, we're creating a CSV file, which is a basic database text file where all the elements are normally separated by commas like this. But we have a problem with financial information because commas are used to denote thousands, so we'll need to come up with an alternative separator. In this case, we're using space, comma, space, but you could use other symbols instead. We're going to be looking through our downloaded data for a target phrase. If there's a problem finding it, resulting in an error, this line will get the routine to resume on the next line of code, but we'll obviously be left with a gap in our data. The next line will also be the first line in our output file, showing the field headings we used in our worksheet. We'll discuss this a bit more later. Now we start on a loop which will run down the table in our worksheet called stocks, picking up the stock tickers of the companies we're interested in. A ticker is a short market code for a company. We then create a URL for each company's Yahoo stock data and get our worksheet drop sheet ready to receive our first download. Now we set up a query table, which you may remember from video 7. As we said then, there are many properties we could use here, but as we're dealing with a simple web page, we'll just need these few. The first 3 basically say we want to download the whole page and convert it into text. And as we're going to use the query table once, we don't need any refreshes. So all being well, after a second or so, our first page should be loaded into Dropsheet and look like this. There's about 200 rows of it. And now we need to look for our data. And the great thing about these types of server-generated pages is that they are almost identical, which is lucky for us. As you can see, the cell with cash flow is highlighted, and in every Yahoo page all the data we need is in the same rows below this cell. So we'll set our search function for look for this cell, and when it's found, we'll collect its row and column properties. Again, we've seen all this in a previous video using a query table, so we'll not go over the details again. Now we collect our data into a string called output CSV, using our variable S as a separator between the elements. And we need to look at this a bit more carefully. What we're trying to do is get our output file to resemble a simple database table. We've already set up the field headers, and now we want to create a unique ID for each company. And the simplest way to do this is to incorporate our loop counter n as the first element. That is, company ID 1 is Shell, company ID 2 is BP, and so on. This will come in very useful in the next videos. And notice several things. The repeated use of the convert string function. As we saw before, Visual Basic doesn't like different types of data mixing. So numbers, for instance, have to be turned into strings first, e.g. 123 becomes 123. Notice also the end of line character 10 when we reach the end of each company's data. This keeps each company's data in our file separate. At this moment, we've not actually added anything to our worksheet stocks, so we'll call a little routine called pop stock sheet to do this. A couple of points here. Notice the simple way we can copy data from the cell of one worksheet to the cell of another. Also, you only really need to use this routine if you want to see the data in the worksheet itself. Getting rid of it won't interfere with updating your web server, which is done solely using output.CSV. Okay, finally, when we've gone around our loop 5 times, picking up all our data into one file, we call subroutine open output, which we saw in an earlier video, to output our data file. As you can see, the routine has two arguments: the complete file path using UK shares for our file name, and our recent output string. And here's a quick look at the routine. It's pretty simple. And here's a look at the output in our folder. Okay, so far we've been going over old ground, which you can find in previous videos, and now for some new stuff. Outside of all subroutines, we're going to declare a public date time variable called refreshTime. All the variables we've declared up to now only work within their subroutines. Public variables work anywhere, and you'll see why we've done this in a minute. Now for a small executive routine called execStockQuotes, which is going to control everything. And it may be tiny, but it's quite powerful. What we're going to do is set off our subroutines and then set up the scheduler to repeat the action every period we've selected. So the first thing to do is to create a specific time event, now plus time value 1 minute, in the variable refreshTime. Excel will use this time event variable not only as an instruction, but also to identify the schedule from any others it may be running. And we need this to switch the scheduler off. Now we can run our download routine and FileMaker stockQuotesCSV, followed by our FTP routine to upload files to our server. And we saw how to create this using Excel and the MS-DOS command line in the last video. And if you only needed to update your website once in a while or by hand, running those two routines might be enough. But suppose you wanted to update your data several times a day. We can use the Application.OnTime method to activate this routine regularly. In our case, we're going to set it to once a minute. Notice it is using our refreshTime variable to set it off, and the name of the current subroutine. We can also set a delay for the procedure to work if something else is running, but we'll leave that blank. Finally, the true at the end switches the scheduler on. And if you want to turn the scheduler off, here's a little routine to do it. As you can see, it's a copy of the other onTime method, except the last property is false, which triggers the stop. So we'll move stuff around so you can see our Visual Basic editor on the left and our folder window on the right, with an old copy of our CSV file highlighted. Click to run execStockQuotes, and off we go. After downloading from Yahoo, we'll see our file being updated on the right, and then the command line window with our file being uploaded to our site. And now we've got a minute to wait for it to do it again. And here's our mock oil market report page in WordPress. We've just used a couple of companies, Shell and BP, and our uploaded Excel data is shown in bold. Obviously names and tickers won't change, but the latest price and today's price range could change quite often, as we can see if we reload our page. This will keep on running until the scheduler is switched off, and until then anyone looking at our WordPress page will get the very latest market information. Well, we made good progress again, but we're still only halfway there. In the next video we'll look at see what code we need to add to our WordPress web page to get all this data to work. In the meantime, thanks for watching.